Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living.
After the last couple of years, optimism, I think, was in short supply. And yet, optimism isn't merely about looking at the bright side of things, which is, I think, the thing that people think of most immediately if you use the word optimism. I think more truly, it is about being willing to act even when the way forward isn't clear. And it's often stepping forward into what are truly unknown spaces and trusting simply because a part of you knows that there is more for you.
Mm-hmm.
And my guest today really knows this intimately. So she will inspire you, and I invite you to stay tuned. I'm Laurie Seymour, welcoming you to Wisdom Talk Radio. I'm CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, which is home of the Inner Guidance Mastery Blueprint. Head there to discover your quantum connection with your inner guidance by taking the Quantum Connection quiz. I designed this because each of us are really designed to connect with Source differently in our own unique way. And knowing your own style, your own way of doing that is the first step of aligning with your inner guidance at a level that you probably haven't really known or believed that you could. It's the secret to creating more of what you truly want in life. So my guest today is Sabrina Victoria. From a struggling single mom to escaping a 13-year narcissistic abusive relationship, Sabrina's tenacity and optimistic spirit have inspired people worldwide and helped people break through and discover their untapped talents and immense potential. And that's why I was drawn to her. Anybody that's looking at people's potential is, it's like, I want to talk to you. She is the creator and CEO of Human Better 365, a human transformation company. She's also the creator of Her Version podcast. I've been a guest on her podcast, and founder of the Sober Society community. Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, Sabrina Victoria. Oops, you're muted.
Sorry about that. How are you?
I'm great. And I'm excited to be with you.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I love the phrase because I haven't heard this phrase before, human transformation company. What are we transforming from and what are we transforming into?
Ooh, you know what? I absolutely love that. To me, I feel as if the word human is has so many levels to it. There's so many different kinds of people here on the planet. And I believe that to be human is one of the most powerful things, or the most powerful thing on the planet. And so many individuals aren't taking that seriously. They're kind of just drifting in and out of consciousness. They're almost, there's no real tenacity. There's no real goals or focus. All of the things that humans are capable of doing, all of the things that humans love to naturally do. And I feel like a lot of individuals are just kind of just floating around, just aimlessly. So my idea of human transformation is to take the word human and up-level it to what it actually is, which is a powerful being. And I think that the way of doing that is to take us from where we are, wherever that is, because we're all on our own journey, and to allow that individual to peel back all the layers of the situations that they have been in their life, to give them new learnings, to open their eyes, to have them become more self-aware of who they are and how they work in and amongst the world or their community, more so than they ever have before, and really allow them to recognize what they're truly capable of. That to me is human transformation.
Wow. And as you were first speaking, I thought, well, what choice do we have but to be human? And you are, and maybe that's something you can speak to, is you mentioned not being conscious, drifting through life.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, all human. However, we're not all living up to the potential of what the definition of how powerful a human can be, mentally and emotionally. Yeah.
So this is something I've seen you speak about, as you redefine what it means to be human, because I think that's part of what your whole platform is about.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
To redefine what it means to be human? Oof. To redefine what it means to be human, just to take it to the next level, to next level it. What are the possibilities? What are your what ifs? What is the complacency that you are sitting in right now in contentment, versus striving for the greatness, striving for the dream, striving for the passion, the desires that are inside of you that you're kind of pushing down because of fear or nervousness, or you're scared of what your mother will say or what your ex will say, and never really stepping into that story or that journey or that power that is ultimately there. One of the things that I talk about all the time is, I don't know about you, and I don't know about every human on the earth, but so many individuals that I have met have explained to me this bubbling up, this like percolation within their inner soul of knowing that they're capable of doing more than what they are currently doing. They just know it. They can feel it. They're looking around and they're thinking, this is not my life.
Yeah.
This is not where or what I'm supposed to be doing. There's more.
Yeah. So when I said that in the beginning, that was spot on, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So how was that for you? I mean, in other words, your story is one that you've been on quite a journey in your life. You have been willing to step out of, and maybe kicking and screaming. I don't know, because we haven't talked about this, but in some way, your focus on potential, your focus on those untapped talents, how did you tap into your own?
I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. My parents were converted the cliche way of someone knocking on their door. Literally, someone knocked on their door. So by the time I was 5 years old, my entire family was completely immersed into that religion. And it's a fairly strict black and white religion. There isn't a whole lot of gray area. And I always found myself questioning everything. I always found myself super curious about all the things, all of the rules, all of the ways of living. And every single time I would speak up, there was always some sort of ramification. Nothing crazy, but just some sort of a hush, hush. What are you talking about? Close your mouth.
Okay.
Just believe.
So some way of putting you under the covers.
Yeah, exactly. So I was dealing with this probably from the age of 12 until I wound up leaving. But the biggest turning point was when I was 20. I wound up getting pregnant when I was 20 years old. And I wasn't married. That's the kicker there. And because
I'm not a rule follower.
yeah, so because of that, Jehovah's Witnesses have what's called disfellowshipping, which is where everything that you have ever known, including your immediate family, it completely disowns you. So when I say disowns or disfellowships, meaning I shouldn't say disown, it's disfellowshipping, where they cut off all communication. So like the gray, like if you've ever heard of narcissism, like you're supposed to do like gray stoning or gray walling, it's that times 10. So like absolutely no communication with anybody. And when you're a Jehovah's Witness, you're told to never associate outside of the religion. So all you have is the people within your religion if you're doing it correctly, which I was, minus the boyfriend. So
Okay.
yeah. So anyways, when I left, I was just in complete isolation. Baby daddy wound up leaving the picture, long story. And I just led a stereotypical single mom broke life, just digging in my cautions for 42 cents, trying to put gas in my car, a rolling balance of negative $172 in my bank account on any given day. Unworthiness, sinfulness, dark, sad, hopeless. And the story gets even crazier than that. But back to the point, I always had this feeling inside of me from like the age of 12. This is not my life. I'm supposed to be doing something different. I am supposed to be doing something bigger. I am supposed to be doing something louder than whatever this is.
How did you hold on to that? How did you hold on to that light in the face of what sounds pretty awful?
To be honest, I don't even know. However, I can say that I'm extremely grateful for it because the story could be perceived as having gotten worse. I wound up meeting a man a year or two into my single mom journey who had money. And I thought that he was given to me by God, despite all of the red flags that he had. And I fell for all of his manipulation, not knowing it was manipulation. I was just naive, again, just not knowing and just so desperate for attention, desperate for affection. And I wound up just kind of following this guy like a little puppy dog. I gave up my place, which I couldn't really afford at the time anyways. He graciously let me into his place. Everything that happened was perceived as a gift. So here, come into my place, let me save you. Here, why work your own job? Why not work for my job? We can build an empire together. Don't worry about paying your phone bill. Close that off and come onto my phone bill. I'll pay for it. So like just these things over a course of time just started happening where, looking back, he gained more and more control over my life, who I was talking to, where I was going. And again, in complete isolation, the verbal abuse and mental abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse got worse and worse and worse. And I remember just sitting sometimes, just kind of zoning out sometimes in this world of fantasy almost, like knowing that this was temporary. Sitting in the car with him screaming at me, telling me that I'm dumb or an idiot, or I don't know anything, or I should be grateful because he pulled me out of the ghetto, or I'm trash. I would just sit and I'm like, I know that this is not my life. This is not where I'm supposed to be or what I'm supposed to be doing. And it took a really, really, really long time because of the verbal abuse happening,
Mhm.
then there's like cognitive dissonance between like what my body is feeling and what's actually being told to me on the
Absolutely.
external.
Yeah.
So it got really hard. However, 8 years into that relationship, I finally hit like a breaking point after probably 100 breaking points. But I was on the floor in the bathroom in the dark, bawling my eyes out, literally having a complete breakdown. For anyone who has been in a very harsh narcissistic relationship, they know what this looks like. It's
Mhm.
like pouring out your soul onto the ground, just everything you have in you, just being vomited onto the ground. You just literally just feel like you're dying. You have no control, complete helplessness. And in that state of just total despair, I pulled out my phone through my fogged eyes because of all the tears. And I still remember this. I was on the floor, coiled up, and I was on like this. And I Googled, why is my boyfriend bullying me? And the very first 2 or 3 things I read, I stopped crying immediately.
Mm.
I sat up in the dark and I'm staring at my phone and I'm like, wait, what is going on?
Wow.
The entire world of narcissistic abuse just hit me right in the face. Toxic
Mhm.
relationships,
Mhm.
codependency, high empathetic vibes, and this whole world that I never heard of before. I
Mhm.
dove headfirst into all of the things. And then finally, that bubbling up, that excitement, that like burning desire that I had inside of me started to like show a face.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. And that dissonance that you talked about of inner and outer, somewhere, okay, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about is the willingness, our willingness to be grateful for things, even horrific sounding things in the moment, not in retrospect. I mean, that's easier, but the willingness to say, oh, this is for me. And it's for me in the sense of, okay, maybe I've been really hard-headed and it's taking this for me to really trust the inside, this inside that has been bubbling. It's been on simmer for how many years? And
Yeah.
that somewhere you had to turn to that. You had to make the distinction between that external, which was saying one thing,
Yeah.
and the internal that was saying something so different, that had the grace and the love that could offer you a different path forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ooh, so in bringing you then forward into, so as you started creating really your work and what you are here to do, what is it that you feel like is the core message?
Community.
Oh.
Everything that I do revolves around humans building community. I think that one of the reasons I was in the situation that I was in for so long is because of the lack of people being able to bounce ideas off of, being able to ask simple questions like, is this normal? I mean, there
Mm.
were so many times in my relationship where I would be like on the floor against a wall in a corner and be getting screamed at like a crazy person. And I would
Mhm.
be bawling my eyes out. And instead of being like, whoa, 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 this is unacceptable, my first thought was, is this normal?
Hmm.
Like, is this what wives do? Is this what
Right.
girlfriends do? Because I had no idea what it was supposed to look like. I didn't
Yeah.
know that it was bad or wrong or not acceptable. So, building community, speaking to women like you were on my podcast like last week.
Mhm.
I believe that you know things that I don't know, and I know things that you don't know. And the only way that humans can continue to rise is if you share with me your stuff, and then I share with you my stuff. And when we're both able to take that little block, we're both able to take a step up. But the only way that we can do that is if there's massive amounts of community that are on the same exact wavelength, on the same exact mission, and who understand the importance of sharing stories, giving advice regarding how we have lived our journey, right? And being cheerleaders and being supportive and asking hard questions and really allowing people to heal at their own pace and have patience, and remind individuals that yes, all of the things, yes, all of the bad things, and there's some good things.
Wow, Sabrina, I'm struck with, in your description of your early years, how alone you were. I mean, that your community had to be focused on being Jehovah's Witness. And then within that, it wasn't a, hey, let's explore life. It was, this is how things are, period.
Yeah.
And then when you went outside of that, this little step outside, little big, that was completely pulled away from you. So any sense of community was pulled away from you.
Yeah.
And then with this man that he was your focus, and he didn't allow that kind of expansion and exploration and curiosity and openness into what was possible.
Yep. Yeah, when you're in relationships like that, they want you to be completely isolated for that very reason. They don't want you being able to get too close to somebody, close enough where you're comfortable asking, is because that's when you start to question things. So they want to keep you close. They don't want you having a lot of individuals within a close reach of you. So it was, it was difficult, but Google, I dove into YouTube, I dove into Google, and I just started absorbing any and every bit of information I could possibly grasp on confidence, power, voice, finances, because I had no money. The things that I was missing, the things that were in me, that I knew were in me.
Yes.
And they just started to blossom. So I almost started to lead this double life of this woe is me, victim type of woman. And then this other part of me that was starting to become this powerhouse and this vibrant and started to make money and save money in a secret account, and having to to live both simultaneously for a few years before I was able to escape. But just knowing, just the excitement of soon. Yeah.
And so that victim role really was just a role. It was like an act you could play, and you could do it consciously, knowing that that's not who you are.
Yeah. And that's where it became really powerful. One of the things that I talk about often is it's just a game.
Yes.
That's really all it is. So I really started to kind of pull myself emotionally out of the story, rise, looking at it as if I was in third person. And I was always looking for the learnings. That was one of the things that I really grasped early on in my personal development is, they always talk about, take yourself out of victim role and what are you learning? The universe is always teaching you something. And I know, and I think you kind of touched on this, it's kind of hard to do it in the thing. sometimes, retrospectively, I think that's what you said. In retrospect, it's a lot easier. But one of the things that I had to get really good at in order to not fall victim into that whole thing again is I had to constantly in the moment while I was getting verbally abused, like insanely, I had to think to myself, what is he teaching me right now? What am I learning right now?
Yeah.
And that using just that tiny little piece of advice from wherever I was getting it from at that point is truly what saved me emotionally from just falling apart constantly and not being able to withstand growing this part of me.
It's brilliant, and it's beautiful, and it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And your willingness and ability to do that in the moment, it feels like really your soul, your spirit being not being able to speak to you, speaking to you, and you listening.
Yep.
You listening. And that for me is so key. We so often have inner senses of things and inner knowing, but then we override it and we say, oh, the self-doubt, well, that's probably not true, or maybe that's just my want to believe that, but who knows, and that self-doubt just erodes our own spirit.
Absolutely.
And you were stepping out of that.
Yep.
Even if it took you however long it took you. It's a blink of an eye if you look at it.
100. Thank you for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. And that's another thing that individuals need to recognize is going for it. It seems like infinity, but it's not. It literally is a blip. 1%. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can get so caught in the pattern of something. We all have patterns. We all have patterns, and the willingness again to see them. Oh, that's just a pattern, which means I can create a different one. I can get out of it. I can choose something different.
Yes, absolutely.
So on your journey with your work, what would you say as an entrepreneur and working with entrepreneurs, what would you say is really crystal clear or is really important for people to understand?
As far as being an entrepreneur? Ooh, persistence.
Okay.
Consistency. And a good attitude. Yeah. You got to show up excited about your business every single day, despite the money, despite yesterday, despite fatigue, showing up with excitement, optimism, consistently, and knowing that there's going to be stuff. There's going to be ups and downs, and you have to persevere. You have to keep going. You have to get up again. You have to keep climbing.
Let me dissect that a little. I'm in a place right now in my life with a lot of big change, and I'm aware that while my tendency, my typical nature is, okay, what do I have to do? What do I have to do next? This is really a time for me to allow myself space. And we all go through those places when something ends and there's something else that's beginning, and we're in that in-between place. And that's highly creative. And if we keep pushing, we can miss that. We can stay with the, oh, here's what I think I got to do. And I'm going to keep, and I said I was going to do this, and I'm going to keep focused on it. I'm going to do. Whereas maybe life is bringing in something a little different, or maybe vastly different.
Yeah.
And in order to be present for that, we have to be present. We can't even be on the automatic of, okay, I'm going to pick myself up and go, go, go again.
Yep. 100%. And this is where personal development, doing the work, is so important, because if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your limits, if you don't know how your body works, if you're not in tune mentally, emotionally, physically with who you are as a person and what your body needs, if you skip over that part in the learnings, you just jump right from being a normal soul to entrepreneurship, it can get really hard. It can get really hard, 100%. So right there, just hearing you say that is a very amazing indication as a client, recognizing hiring someone like you as a coach would be beneficial to me, because you've already done both sides of the work versus linking up with a coach who is just what I was just talking about, the whole go, 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 go part. If you're not linking up with somebody who understands that there's a feminine and masculine side to business, the probability of your business burning out, crashing to the ground, you throwing the entire thing in the garbage, feeling just this constant roll of anxiety every single time you wake up is bound to happen.
Yeah.
So it's so important to make sure that, speaking to your audience right now, it's so important to recognize, do research, and key in on the work that your coach has done personally before hiring them for business.
Business and life, there's really not a lot of distinction. I mean, in other words, how we do one thing, it said, is how we do everything. And I really see that in terms of that, what we think of as a distinction between business and life.
Yep. Agree.
Yeah,
definitely.
So
I don't think that there is a big difference. If you're an entrepreneur, there just isn't a big difference.
There just isn't.
Yeah.
What feels like is next for you? What feels like is on the creative block? And I don't mean block as in stopping point, but like that piece that you're stepping into.
Yes. I was just on a walk with my fiance last night.
Oh, she's got to say.
So anyways, earlier that day, or maybe it was the day before, I had gotten a message, which I get messages like this all the time, but a message from somebody in my comments of one of my videos or my posts didn't necessarily agree with what I was saying. And I responded back with love, grace, supportiveness, appreciation, and was proud of myself for the response. And I wound up taking a screenshot, minus his name, of his comment, and then taking a screenshot of what I had responded. And I put it up on my social media, and over hundreds of comments and likes or loves or whatever all over it, between a few different groups and my pages. And reading through all of the comments of good for you. Good for you for showing up the way you did. And I was telling my fiance about this. I'm like, I just felt so good seeing the response. But what was so interesting is while I was messaging him back, the power that I felt as a leader, as a woman, as somebody in the community that I'm growing, which is Her Nation, I felt as if I had an entire army of women behind me.
Wow.
Of like, we got you.
Yeah.
And that's something that I haven't had.
Right. And here is this piece around community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so as far as what I want to do next, and I was talking to one of the girls in my community about this today, exactly what I just told you, of just this feeling of like literally imagining myself at the front and just all of these women just wide and far. And I'm like, I want that feeling for every woman. Like,
Mhm.
I want you, Laurie, to be able to envision the same thing I envisioned
Mhm.
with a community. I want every woman that I am seeing behind me to also be me and feel that feeling of also that community. So trying to figure that out, trying to build out a education around what it means to be surrounded by an army of people that are there for you
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, incredibly supportive and non-judgmental, and just understand humans, understand empathy, understand that he has his story, right?
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
guy who responded to me, he has his story.
Right.
And he was allowed to respond to my story the way he responded to my story because he is where he is in his healing journey. Like, how beautiful is that to be surrounded by so many people who were like, yes, he can, and yes, you can.
Mm.
Just so beautiful, just so beautiful. So I'm really trying to take that momentum that I felt over the last couple days and build that out as far as what that would look like, what that would feel like in real life.
Mhm. Mhm. I have a friend who I had on the podcast some months back who was building a movement around women who have your back. And it had a different, flavor in a way, but it was similar in that she had had a cancer diagnosis and had to go through surgery. And it was the being alone versus having women who could support you.
Yeah.
And bring you food, bring you, I mean, there's the big virtual one, but then there's the physical. How can we support you in your journey,
Yeah.
rather than you being alone? And her mission was about building groups like that all over.
I love it. Absolutely.
And I
That's
see you
great.
doing that on a, maybe not on the physical level, but certainly in the psychic, energetic, spiritual, physical, emotional, that sense of, wow, how can we recognize that we are part of this global human family?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have
Definitely.
quite a mission ahead of you.
Yes. And I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So excited.
So how can people find you? You mentioned Her Nation, if you would speak to that, and anything, anywhere else that you want people to be able to find you.
Yeah, so I usually move most people just to my website, which is sabrinavictoria.com. It's easy
Mhm.
enough. And that has all the links to all of the goodness that I do. I have several different entities
Mhm.
that I run and that I'm a part of, and Her Nation is part of that. So yeah, just sabrinavictoria.com, and all of the goodness that I am bringing to the world is locked on that website.
And say a little bit about Her Nation.
Like, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Her Nation started as a podcast. My podcast, which you've been on, is called Her Version, all based around storytelling. And it's just kind of taken on a life of its own. It became so overwhelming, and there were so many women. I just kind of like, it's no longer a podcast anymore. This is
Mhm.
an actual nation that we are slowly forming. So I took the initiative to go off and see if I could find a place for us to be. And I got the domain name hernation.life. and the Facebook domain is hernation.life. And it's all about just a place for women to be able to speak their story, and a place for people to be able to find, for women to be able to find support. So we run support groups called Her Space. I run a mastermind for females called Her Mastermind, female entrepreneurs. Today is our book club debut. So it's our first volunteer run book club that's coming out of that same community. It's being run by 4 of my very favorite ladies that are in that community. They started out with me in the very beginning, and we're growing out from there. There's a million ideas that I have, but one thing at a time.
Or maybe 3 or 4 at a time.
Yeah.
I know you.
But it's awesome. It's really exciting. The Facebook group that I run is extremely active, and it's all just powerful women who are coming together and supporting each other.
Great. And I know from the time that we record this to the time that this actually comes out, you will have probably some new things available on your website that, maybe you just have a glimmer about right now.
Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you, Sabrina Victoria. You have shined the light in some ways that are truly, I want to say unique, not unique to you as in they're not to anyone else, but your own way of giving voice to this is unique to you. And I so value that.
Thank you.
And thanks for being with us today here at Wisdom Talk Radio. To our audience, join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are now on YouTube as well, which is great. So you get to see Sabrina's beauty in flesh, in physical form. And if you've enjoyed listening today, please leave us a review, because when you leave a review, that's what helps other people discover this kind of wisdom and illumination. It's what helps the transformation of the world. And we are definitely all about that. And for more about deepening your connection with your inner guidance, take the Quantum Connection quiz now.
Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.